Ready to hit the pause button on your parenting fails? Ready to feel better about your parenting? Welcome to Parenting Pause, the podcast, where all of you is welcome. I'm Leslie Potter, the founder of the Pure Joy Way, a mother, a parent coach, and a fellow traveler on this journey to wake up in our parenting. And I believe together we can make this a better world for ourselves and our kiddos. So in our last episode, we talked a bit about how we position as a victim. And positioning as a victim is one of the most self-aggressive postures that we can take against ourselves. Even though as children we were victims to our parents' limitation, as adults we have the capacity to take care of ourselves. And the hardest part about this, as we talked about in our last podcast, is actually having to feel ourselves as feeling selfish, abandoning, and rejecting of our children. And the reason this is hard is because many of us, especially I know for me in the conscious parenting movement, I always wanted to be seen as generous and kind and loving and giving to my daughter. Right? I didn't really want to own the other aspects of myself that didn't feel so generous. The part of me that wanted to set healthy boundaries, that wanted to say no, that wanted to have healthy separation. I was really afraid of those parts. And if I did take healthy separation, especially as a child, I got into trouble, or I was told I was selfish or mean or rude or bad. So it was very, very easy then to position as a victim of my daughter and her behavior, and then to try to limit and bind her. And again, what that looks like, this is so tricky because we're taught this so much in the traditional parenting that children need limits and boundaries. And I'm not saying that they don't. What I like to say is how they receive those is very different in this model. It's like I don't feel it's my job to limit and bind my daughter so that I don't feel discomfort, right? If I want to do that, I'm usually positioning as a victim. I have a sense that she is causing me to feel a certain way, and so therefore I want her to fix it by limiting and binding her behavior. In this model, I come back in and I set my healthy boundaries of what I'm willing to offer my daughter or what I'm not willing to offer her. And then, of course, she comes up against my limitation and my boundary. So I really want you to hear that distinction because it's a little hard to, after we've, over and over and over been told that children need limits and boundaries, and the way you do that is you limit them and you bind them. And so it gets confusing for folks when I talk about this. It's just like when I talk about feelings, when I say that no one causes your feelings, they trigger your feelings. And someone asked me the other day, they're like, well, if I scream and yell, my child might be afraid. And I told her, well, the reason we know that you're triggering that fear in the child, but the next child next to you may think it's funny, or I may, think that like, wow, that woman is crazy. Not take it inside. So our feelings live inside of us. Our healthy boundaries are inside of us. We have the capacity as adults to step into these healthy boundaries, to be able to tell our children, to own our limitations, basically. Right? Instead of limiting and binding our children, which again makes them often question themselves because they may think that there's something wrong with them and their desires and their needs. When we own our limitations, because we are all limited. And once we actually accept that and are okay with it, we can take personal responsibility for, owning those boundaries. And it's like we said in the last podcast, that doesn't mean your children are not going to have feelings about it, right? They are most likely, because they're going to come up against your boundary. If they want something, they're coming to you to get it met. If you set your boundary of what you can offer, they are going to have feelings about it. But then if you project onto them that they're bad or they're wrong or they're rude or they're mean, right, for the way they're talking to you, again, you make them responsible for your discomfort. And you don't have to do this. This is the coolest thing. It's like when we don't do that, when we can take responsibility for our discomfort and work with it. And in my work, I have the Safe Seat process, and you can download that for free on the website here on the front page. But I learned if I could work with my discomfort and if I could own my feelings and attend to the part of me that was a victim as a young child, if I could attend to those feelings with kindness and love, I could grow myself back up and turn back toward my daughter from my adult self and own my limitations and know that it was really okay for her to have feelings about that. They're just feelings. Right? They aren't a statement about who I am, because she might yell at me that I'm mean and I'm selfish and I'm rude and I'm unsupportive and all of that. And when I know inside of myself that that's not true, that I'm just setting a healthy boundary, I don't have to convince her. I don't have to get her to understand what I'm doing. I can be compassionate, generous, and loving with her. All right, lovies. Hope you have a great day or evening whenever you're listening to this, and thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for listening to this episode of Parenting Paused. If you enjoyed the episode, do me a favor and share it with your mama friends. You can also leave a review wherever you listen, which will support getting the Pure Joy message out. Come on over to the Pure Joy Parenting Practice Facebook page or join me on Instagram to hear more. And don't forget to download your free copy of the Safe Seat course on the Pure Joy website. And while there, check out the offerings page to go deeper in the Pure Joy work.